right to Brassionomics, everybody. Heather filling in for Ben Brassion. And joining us now is Eric Robison, managing broker with Keller Williams. And he was also recently awarded by Washington Associations of Mortgage Professionals with their 2012 Business and Humanitarian Leadership Award for Outstanding Real Estate Professional. Welcome, Eric, and congratulations.
Thank you, Heather.
That's so great. So how did this award come about?
Well, I think we'll have to ask them. No, I was actually, there's a field of, I guess, 70 nominations, they said.
Because I know you do a lot of charity work, and you work with a lot of organizations, dogs, and...
Right. And no, I've done fundraisers, produced Fashion First for 2 years. They raised $200,000 there to help kids with HIV, go to summer camp. So, I mean, it's a lot of it is looked at as to what your charitable work is, but they also look into your work as a realtor also to see if, you know, what your clients think. They research it. And they narrowed the field to 6 nominees, and last Thursday I was announced as the winner.
That's so awesome. Well, I think that's a tribute to what a great professional you are, but also I think being involved in the community and touching people around you in a professional and a community sense is a really great thing. So good work on that.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to talk about this topic today, too, because we sometimes have professional home inspectors come in here to talk about the home inspection process, but I think it's different coming from, you know, a practiced real estate agent with, you know, talking about the importance of real estate inspections for your home and your opinions and your advice that you have for buyers and sellers. And we were going to get a little bit into kind of the buyer's perspective here. So kind of give us some thoughts and advice you have for buyers as they're going into the home buying process and where the kind of home inspection falls into place.
Well, I try to explain them first that the home inspection is, from the buyer perspective, that's going to be their second round of negotiations on a house.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just here we have agreed on a price. Now we need to do our investigation and really learn about the home with their inspectors. I try to also steer them into the fact that, you know, we're looking for structural issues, major problems.
Right.
We're not trying to nickel and dime a seller with little cosmetic things like, you know, there's a little
like
bit
a nick
of
in the paint or
yeah,
the deck
things
in the
like
wall,
that. And try to bring them into that perspective of let's figure that out, and then we have to negotiate off that. Also, surprising to me is that I have met many people looking to sell their homes who never even did sewer inspections when they bought. And that in itself is really important. Absolutely, because that's the one thing your home inspector does not look at. You have to get a sewer inspector to scope that line, because many of these homes around here now, they have old clay pipes that could be 100 years old. If they have huge trees in the yard, they could be growing into it, and there could be breaks happening, and that can be very pricey. Sellers don't like it when we find it, but we work through it, and they get a sewer line out of it, the buyer at no cost, usually.
Absolutely. Well, it seems like the inspection would kind of be, at least for me and my perspective on it, is the make it or break it. Find out kind of what you're getting yourself into, because honestly, if a home has some fresh paint, new furniture, you know, they stage it well, you might look past that and think, oh, this is the perfect home, let's move in.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, a doe in headlights when they first see their beautiful new home, because they just see everything is beautiful and great. And like you said, staging, new fresh paint. But when we go in the home inspection, well, that's when they really have to sit back and decide if this is really the home for them. And I tell them, you know, this is basically your last easy way to back out of the contract and get your earnest money. The way the contracts are written, we don't even have to explain why we didn't like the inspection. We can just walk. But it also, you know, it empowers a buyer, too, because the seller doesn't necessarily want you to walk off of an inspection.
Right. So you have a little bit of negotiating power.
Well, absolutely. We can say, you can work with us on this, but, you know, if you don't, you're aware of it now, and you're going to have to fill out a whole new seller disclosure, Form 17, when you go back in the market and tell everyone exactly what it is you know about your house now, unless you choose to go fix it before you go on the market.
Yeah.
But rather than do that, why not let's get to terms now and fix it and move forward.
Seems easier that way, doesn't it?
It seems easier, but some sellers, you know, they don't quite see it my way all the time.
Well, it's their house is better than everybody else's house.
Right. Everybody has their own vision of what it is.
Absolutely. So you mentioned sewer lines as a big deal, but what are some other things that you really advise your clients to think about that might pop up in an inspection that could sway their decision to, you know, to buy or, you know, to renegotiate the price?
Well, especially you want to go into that house, you want to have a good idea what your foundation's like. You know, the homes that have water in basement is more common in the Seattle area than you would think, but not that that's a negative, but you want to make sure you're structurally sound. Because if you're not, that's a huge expense to have to maybe re-secure your foundation. If you're on a hill, our hills are not the most stable.
No, it's a little crazy.
You want to maybe get a geotech engineer in there and make sure, how is that hill going to hold up with your home? Because you don't want to be the owner when that thing starts to slide.
Yeah.
Because then it falls on you, not on the seller before. So there's a lot of things to look at. You want to check into the attic. You want to look at beams, see if there's rot happening. Is moisture getting into your home? Moisture is a really big problem in homes. And you don't necessarily see it when you first go in. You want to make sure that there's nothing happening behind the walls or around the windows. If there's leaks happening, is it getting into the walls? You'd be surprised how many times I've been on inspections and just a good old screwdriver poking around. They go, look, and there it goes, right through the wall.
Through a wall or
through a beam. You're like, wow, I guess that's not too good anymore.
Oh, my God.
And the sellers had no idea.
Yeah.
Because they had never had a problem with it.
Yeah, that'd definitely be.
Now it's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the roofs of homes? Is that another thing people need to?
Yeah, most lenders, they won't even lend if they think your roof needs to be replaced within the next 5 years. So yes, you want to make sure it's good. Composite roofs, sometimes they can go up to 3 times putting down a new layer, but you want to see, if it's covered in moss. That's not a good thing. Moss eats up a roof faster than anything. So you want to see it's clean, see how old it is. But yeah, roofs are definitely, a roof and a sewer line are also 2 things you'd always go to a seller and say, you need to fix this before we close.
Okay.
Other things you might say, we want to negotiate a price that they give us on closing costs because maybe some work on plumbing, you'd rather be there after the sale with your own plumber to make sure it's done the way you want it, not the way the seller on the way out just got done real quick.
Yeah, no, quality work. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about timeline on the inspection period. I think that's important that you kind of tell people a little bit about that.
Yes, you'll have a timeline, sometimes 7 days, 10 days. Sometimes the sellers will try to push it into 5 days. But whatever the timeline you come up with, don't wait to the end of the timeline. You want to get in there as fast as you can because depending on what you discover, there could be some issues. You want to get some contractors in there. You want to get some bids. You want to know what these costs are going to be so that you can formulate a response.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the sooner you get in, the better.
Can you negotiate more time if some big issues come up that you need to look more into?
Sellers don't like you to, but yes, I have. It's a simple thing. You go back to the seller, and once again, you're the buyer. You have power here in the contract at this point because you can go back and say, look, here's what we've discovered. We need 3 more days to really formulate a proper response and get these bids in. But it's past our timeline, so we need to extend it now. I'll agree to it, or we'll just walk away from the deal right now. Okay. And usually the sellers will go, no, we'll give you 3 more days.
Yeah, well, you had mentioned that sellers don't like going back on the market. So if you're a buyer and you really like the house, do you think that you have the opportunity to really negotiate and they'll want to negotiate with you because otherwise they'll have to redisclose all these problems, as you mentioned? Oh,
you do get the occasional stubborn seller. Sometimes they need to, just like you had to formulate your response and you had to sit on it because buyers, after inspection, many times, I'll tell them, go home and sit on this because hearing all the little nitpicky things from the inspector, they kind of get overwhelmed and think it's going to fall down.
Yeah.
But then in 24 hours, they've come to a better understanding of their home. Same with the seller. You need to let them sit on it because you're telling them something they don't want to hear.
Or they might not know about a couple days prior.
Of course, they don't know it. But now they're not really happy knowing it. And they're really not happy because now, we got to deal with this. So you got to give them some time to come to terms with it. But generally, you can come to meeting minds with the seller on it because it isn't a wise thing to go back on the market. You can always say, well, it wasn't a big deal. They didn't get their financing together. But we all know when they get back off an inspection, usually there's something wrong with that house.
Yeah, that's good. Well, that's good to know for people looking at homes out there. And then, of course, on the show for the last couple of months, we've been talking a lot about multiple offer situations. And for a lot of the good homes in Seattle, it seems like it's almost par for the course.
Absolutely.
So with inspections and a lot of people gunning after the same house, does that kind of change the process?
Well, yeah, we can just throw out everything I just said. And you hope to have enough time to get in there and do pre-inspection, because then you're pretty much buying that house as is. But in the same sense, there are multiple offers happening, and there's such a tight timeline of when they went on the market, and they're looking at offers that, you have to formulate, like, asking the seller's agent, have anyone else done pre-inspections? A lot of times in these multiple offers, people are not doing pre-inspections. And if that's the case, then you can go in still saying you want your inspection period.
I would think you'd want to, because, I mean, like we said before, even the nicest house might have something wrong that would be a big deterrent or something you'd want fixed.
Absolutely. But in multiples, we also say, you're a stronger position if you've waived the inspection. But we're hoping we've already gone in and inspected the house so they know what they're buying. And if not, that's a very, very, very heavy decision for a buyer to decide if they're comfortable buying it and not inspecting it.
Yeah.
And generally, I would say most buyers, we'll keep the inspection in.
Nice. Well, that's good to know. I mean, I don't know that a lot of people could go in buying a house blind, but in these really crazy situations, it seems like, people do.
Yeah, there are people with pocketbooks.
And yeah, that if there's something wrong, they're not worried about it. Absolutely.
They're not worried about
and then we have to go to break in just one second, but I had one more question for you. You had mentioned that, there's a kind of a price point for major items, because it seems like with most home inspections, there's always going to be something wrong. And I think a list of small fixes can scare people away. Is there a difference between, small items, big items that need to be fixed, and kind of the price points between those two?
Well, when they start getting like $750, $1,000 to make something better because it's a problem, those are the things we start making a list and start talking about we need to discuss with the seller. If it's like a little, the door jamb needs to be replaced, that's such a minor little thing. We don't need to argue about that.
Yeah, well, if that's the biggest problem, it's probably the right house, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Feel lucky.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Again, that was Eric Robison, managing broker with Keller Williams. I like to say Kelly a lot because that's my sister's name, Keller Williams. But and congratulations again for the recent award from the Washington Association of Mortgage Professionals. That's awesome.
Thank you so much, Heather.
All right. When we come back, Paul Kokohook will join us. You're listening to Brashonomics. Heather Moore filling in for Ben Brashen.